since he managed to strip her down to her bra, that was when he lost all circulation to his, upper head, obviously, and started completely losing. She was fucking him over left and right. That was exactly the moment where Crazy Frog started playing, and so he started doing this little dance that traumatized us all. Oh my god. Like, until today, we cannot listen back to the song without having a very clear image. But he was back then pretty nice looking. He went to the gym. He was lean. He was, muscular. Had a slight six pack. He looked nice. He wasn't all that in the face. He was at best a little bit ugly cute, but it's honestly way more ugly than cute. He was just not a good looking guy. He wasn't hideous either. It was just like on the uncute side of the equation, but we did not mind. He did have a very attractive vibe that was mesmerizing. It was nice having his attention. He knew he had riz, as the young people of today say it. He did have charisma, and he did know how to, go about his business. But then again, he was dealing with 14-year-olds. I think that's the only reason he even did have the charisma that we thought he had. I can't imagine falling for it even like at 18 or 20 or something. I don't know. But he wasn't a creep completely. Like, nothing he did to us was that unwelcome, or like, it did not feel like an assault. Whenever he did grab me or like kiss me, or Tina, or like this other friend, he did this too as well. It was always in the moment where it was kind of like understood to be a joke, and there was like context to it. I guess it wasn't just him randomly, and he never overstayed his welcome. He never like groped someone or anything. Just grabbing you by the shoulders and kissing you was the extent of it. But I know it's bad. Like, it's I'm just really trying to explain it from my perspective back then. Time goes by slower when you're young, and also the people that you hang out with, you tend to meet much more frequently, and so it feels like you've known a person for ages. And I've seen Jean many times a week. We had like this whole private friendship, then we had the public friendship that was also cool. So we all kind of started to just trust each other and accept each other in each other's presence, and lower our guards around each other. There was alcohol involved. I don't know, it was fine doing that shit. Other guys also being like funny with us and being like a little bit rough with us occasionally. We'll be play fighting, like throwing each other in the snow or something. It was a good vibes in the whole group. So yeah, anyway, we all stopped playing. Tina won, and then we all went out to see my best friend to the bus station, basically, because we were all living right next to each other. Tina and I were neighbors, and Jean was a minute's walk away, and so was Anne. And he started chasing Tina, forcefully kissed her, then he grabbed me, forcefully kissed me. I think Anne had enough sense to bounce before that started happening. I don't know if he probably would not have done that with her, because he was kind of intimidated by her, I guess. But yeah, and I remember also him kissing me when Tina was already home, weirdly enough. I don't know why we lingered, the two of us, but I remember walking up to her apartment one more time, even though we all said bye, and I remember showing her the rash I had on my lips from his like was outside and why I don't remember it being any type of first kiss. Like for me, it wasn't even our first kiss at all. Even though it was our second, it was just, it did not feel like a genuine kiss, and so it did not count for me, you know. I might as well have kissed any of my girlfriends playfully like that. That did not mean anything. At this point, I had kissed like so many girls. Kisses tend to lose their meaning when you're just doing it to do it, when you don't feel anything. And when Gene kissed me, it was the same thing. Maybe if he kissed me a different way, it would have meant something, but I knew that it was just a joke, so I did not choose to dwell on it much. And I also witnessed him do that with Dina just before my eyes, so you know, it was whatever. But then it was kind of like changing bit to bit. We started cuddling, or we started cuddling more. I don't know. We never cuddled when he was with Anne, but I do feel like we did cuddle a little bit. Still absolutely nothing sexual, no thigh being touched, nothing like that. But man, I do feel like he gave me hickeys. And a lot too, like I remember, but he also gave a kiss to my best friend, to Tina, like to everyone. We did a bunch of crazy shit, and I do feel like it might have been part of a grooming process, might have not been. I don't know, the moments where it happened felt kind of natural, not forced, but what do I know, I was so young, you know. Anyway, so this one time, we were all having another sleepover. We're all immigrants, basically. All came at a different time, but there is this place where immigrants can stay, not for free, but they can stay there until they find their apartment. And that was where every one of us has lived at some point, and then we moved on to our apartments. And there was this new guy in town that will be very important to the story as well. His name, we'll call him Dan. Dan just moved here, and so he happened to live in the very same apartment that I and my family lived when we immigrated first. So I could not miss the opportunity to sleep over at this place again. It was my best friend, who again was not my best friend at the time, and then it was Gene, Sam, I don't know if Gus was here, maybe Gus wasn't, but this other cousin, and Dan is like a gorgeous, tall, black-haired guy with a little bit of a stubble. He's very good looking, very much attractive, funny as hell. He's genuinely the funniest guy I've ever met. His jokes tore you apart. I remember we were all dying laughing from just the way he talked. He was hilarious. He was so charming overall. And then it was time for us to go to sleep. We were sleeping on this bunk bed. Oh, you know what? I'm actually getting two different times confused. But whatever, it doesn't matter. Let's just say the first time and then the second, I guess. So, okay. The first time, no girls were around. It was just me and the boys. Nothing bad happened. We slept in one bed. But the one thing I remember is that he kind of, for the first time ever, we were talking about something, and then it was like something about him being a creep or something, and he kind of ran the palm of his hand quickly through my body, like in between my legs, but very quickly, and he was like, me touching you like that would have made me a creep or something. It was very quick. It wasn't gropey, but it was still inappropriate. And then we just continued talking like nothing happened, and I was like, ugh, you know, what the fuck. But nothing bad happened. But the situation I actually wanted to talk about was this other party sleeping over my best friend and the rest of the guys and this Dan dude. And we are again on a bunk bed. My best friend on top and Jean and I on the lower bed. I remember very much enjoying sleeping in his arms. I also hugged him back, which is not something I was used to doing with guys. I normally just let Gus, for example, just hug me, and I would never hug him back in any way. I felt paralyzed when guys did that. I never felt like doing the most for some situationship, so I just was very, very passive. Yeah, we slept hugging each other. I hate sleeping when something is pressed to me, when I don't have my wiggle room, but I remember forcing myself to fall asleep, and I finally managed to do it, but it was worth it. I remember thinking that it's a very nice feeling and I really like it, and it's worth losing sleep over. So the night went very normal. It was the morning where things started to go off the rails. I don't know what the fuck happened. We're all hungover, and the very first fucking thing my best friend decided to do was bring us some more shots of vodka. We haven't even gotten out of bed yet. It was funny, we just did it because it was so funny to just drink vodka very first thing in the morning. So we had already a couple of shots in us, no food. The three of us were now all in the same bed. My best friend told him to get the fuck out from the bed, laid down. She was next to the wall, I was in the middle, and Jean was sitting on the floor next to us. We were laughing, giving each other hickeys. My friend, she was for some reason on Jean's phone or something, and I was turned towards Jean, and he was sitting on the floor next to me, and we started like biting each other's faces or something, and he bit my nose, I bit his, and then our faces were right next to each other, and our noses were touching. We could feel each other's breath, you know. And I remember knowing damn well that what's about to happen, and I kind of realized that he was not about to initiate it, but he was waiting for me to. So I just went halfway and he went halfway, and we started kissing. And that was like the first real kiss we shared. And of course, it was another person around, my best friend, on Jean's phone, cursing me, probably in her mind, and wanting to just disappear out of sheer awkwardness of the poor girl. And that would be not the last time this happened specifically to her and I with another guy, but much later, but whatever. So yeah, it was odd that it happened, but it was a very nice kiss. Jean was a very good kisser, and he taught me how to kiss very well. I have been complimented on that a lot, later in life. And we kissed for a while too, like a couple of minutes, something, I don't know. And then we just went about our business normally, like nothing happened. And I remember I wanted to go home, and even though Jean lived right next to me, he had some other things to do or something, and my best friend was just like saying to him, you better walk her to the bus station. So he did, and it was just so pathetic. I still hate myself for doing that. I looked at him with, like, as someone who expected to be kissed, and I feel like it was just very pity inducing, and I just felt how he felt obligated to kiss me again. It was just more like, fuck, I made a mistake and now I have to play the gentleman or something. And obviously I expected no marriage proposal, but I thought that maybe it meant that he was interested in me or became interested in me or something. But also, now looking back at it, there was literally a bus full of people just standing there was that necessary to change our dynamic? Over what? That was what I did not understand. It's not like I made it known or complained that I wanted more, because I didn't know if I did want more. I was fine with the dynamic that we had. Even if I wasn't, I sure as hell would not have shown it to him. So there was no need to introduce anything else other than friendship into our already weird as if relationship. And the same night, he started texting me when we all went home on some stupid shit, playing with my emotions. Are you catching feelings for me? And I was just like, nah, bro, I'm good. Laughing emoji, stuff like that. But what else do you expect me to say? And he was like, because I'm 9 years older than you. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I got that. I'm currently learning math in school, And it was just weird that he said it like that. Are you catching feelings and stuff? If you made a mistake, then you should have just let it go and never repeat it. But he was starting to change the course of our friendship, and I just did not appreciate it. I was just confused about his intentions and what was real, what wasn't. Like, I was too young to really get how things played out exactly. I did not have that many tools in my arsenal and knowledge about human condition and just the psychology even, or whatever, life experience. And I just thought the way I decided, I guess, to remember this whole confusing story was that he switched gears and changed his mind around somewhere around the point where we kissed, because otherwise he would not have even kissed me, maybe. But I was never plan A. I was never anything he took seriously. I was just, as I've said, refrigerated meat, saved for later, saved for a maybe, for a rainy day. But as far as his feelings towards me on a human level, on a friend level, I do feel like he liked me and he liked spending time with me. Spending as much time together as we did, I would have noticed if he was annoyed by me, or you can't really pretend and hide all the time. Something would have been amiss, that would be a red flag. But he was pleasant towards me and he liked spending time with me. We always had something to talk about. I don't even remember what exactly we did. We were just doing things every friend on the planet is doing. Going somewhere, running some errands. I was not sure if I liked him, if I didn't like him. Part of me knew that I did not love him or anything. I still don't feel like there was anything strong that I felt towards him. But I guess partially it was my ego finally, getting the attention that everyone else but me was getting. But I wasn't angry about being friend-zoned. I liked having him as a friend. I just wondered why I was not good enough to also be seen as a girl, because he was dealing with girls my age, so it could not have been that. I don't know. And I genuinely think that he wasn't really actively trying to hurt me by making me jealous and secretly wanted me more than he showed. No, I feel like he was genuinely not interested. Even though he liked young girls, the other girls he had things happen with were all more just developed as I was. I was a stick, and I still am. I was boyish, but emotionally he was getting attached to me, and it was very selfish of him to allow this to happen, and not very smart of me too, because actually I knew better. I knew that I was playing with fire, and things were happening that could not end well. I did not see myself in a relationship with him at all. I was so interested in hanging out with guys my age. I was just so tired of dealing with G. He wasn't the last guy much older that would hit on me. That was the second one. I was like around Jean's age. Relatively funny guy that had this funny laughter. I don't know why he was hanging out with us. It was just a while. He was like a friend of a friend. And again, he picked Tina and I to hit on. I guess we just got noticed more because we were extroverted. And he started making out with Tina, and then he grabbed me, started kissing me. Another forceful kiss. The next day, we were partying again, and he picked me as his, final pick. Like the whole party, he spent just following me around, hugging me, and then he kissed me a couple of more times forcefully. This guy was cute enough, and I was single. I did not really, apparently and obviously, understand the concept of, I don't know, age gaps or consent, bro. But see how they just line up behind you like one after the other, making you soft for each other. Like, it's so sickening. And Jean and him were not friends or anything. It was just a coincidence. But just thinking back on it, we were hanging out with way too many guys, too old to be even in our presence, or for us to be in their presence. It was bad, and I feel like the reason was just the guys, the cousins. They were all 17, 18, so they went both ways. They went up with certain guys where, there would be a 4-year age gap between them, which is manageable, and then they brought us along who, were younger than them, and it just did not mix well. For those guys in the middle, maybe it did, but not for us back end, And then this other time, this guy came around, I don't know where from, and declared, after hanging out with us for just a couple of times, that I'm going to be his girlfriend. He wasn't much older than me, like 3 years maybe, and I feel like it was just this misguided attempt on getting with me because he thought, girls like assertive men. It was just very ill-advised and desperate. It did not come off like it came from a position of strength and genuinely believing in himself. It was more like desperation and trying too hard, and it was just very cringy. And since, I have never had a normal relationship with a guy ever, just these dysfunctional, weird, passive relationship where I had no control. I just let him say all this stuff. I was just like, as long as it doesn't touch me, I guess I'll just tolerate it and let it hope for it to fizzle out. That was just so weird of me to do that, but again, I had no reference points. I was also surrounded by weird other relationship between other people, so we just all were very dysfunctional, and we were bad lessons for each other. And I was just thinking to myself, maybe a guy roughly my age is a godsend. He seems very interested, and he's everything Jean isn't. He's obsessed with me, even though he was like heavily love bombing me. He could have been less annoying, but the way he just took me over was an immediate no for me. I did not know how to say that. How women are forced to protect men's feelings and stuff like that, and their ego in public. It was just a very public situation, and I was just like, man, this guy ranting on about how when I turn 16, we're gonna do this and that. He's gonna, pay for my driver's license and shit like that. He was planning our future, and I was legitimately just sitting here, not trying to do any of that, but was saying things without even knowing me about our future and how he liked me and stuff. And he also tried to forcefully kiss me, I believe. I don't know if it succeeded or not, but it's just crazy, and I can go on and on actually about guys like this who did this shit to me. I'm a magnet for shit like that. Those people don't know each other. Like, every one of those was an isolated incident, and it's just crazy to me. Thankfully, one day Gene came around when we were all hanging out. This dude can only get this far because Gene was not around for any of it. But then he came around, and this dude always wanted to hold my hand, and I let him. And this particular day we were outside, and we wanted to go to the gas station to buy more alcohol. And he took my hand, and we were walking, and Gene just approached me from the other side and took my other hand. And I was just like, is this real life? Like, what the fuck? I was now walking with two guys holding on for dear life because it was an ego thing. And Gene was just doing it out of malice, and he wanted to be like the winner, of course. It was just an ego thing for him. This guy was too afraid to say anything, but I just let it happen because honestly at this point, who wouldn't like that type of situation? I just ended up letting the other guy's hand go, but I stayed holding Gene's hand. That was like the end of the guy. He just fizzled out, gently disappeared. Gene had got his big victory, and our relationship remained pretty much the same, with one major exception. We would put on some movie and we'll start kissing for hours. It was so pleasant, but he never did anything sexual, never touched me, not, on my thigh, not anything. The most he could do was, hold my wrists or something, or kiss my neck or earlobe, but that was about it. No groping, no nothing. It felt very nice, like he was, again, a very good kisser. I believe that I'm kind of asexual, and so I did not feel like going anywhere with this at all. Did not have physical feelings more than just, butterflies in my stomach. It's hard to explain, but then again, I also never expected it to go anywhere else. It remained extremely PG. Maybe I would have felt differently if it went there, but it never went there. He was very respectful, and it did not seem like he was trying to suppress some beast or whatever. I almost feel like he wasn't even that attracted to me on that level, so he could afford to just kiss me for, this long a time and not, want more. He also told Tina once that he knew that nothing is going to happen with me, and so it was easier for him to begin with to just set himself up for a non-sexual thing. And with Tina it was different. He knew that it would happen if he wanted it to happen, and so, whenever something happened between them, and yes, unfortunately, it will go there, but it was different because he knew there would be something for him in it. I don't know why he would do that, knowing that it would not end up in a sexual thing. So my only solution is either he was very invested in grooming me, or he was just also having fun the same way I was having fun. It was just very nice. We felt very close to each other. We were cuddling. It was nice to have someone to kiss on, to cuddle with, someone whose face you could hold in your hands. There was this closeness between us. I feel like it just felt good to him the same way it felt good to me. It's very sad that those were, my early great experience with a guy, because it was just so uncalled for and weird, and I could have had that with a much better guy that would be much more suited for me, and it his affection to me in public, but not by much. So for other people, it just all remained a mystery, even though it was like the least hidden secret in the whole group of friends. Everyone knew that we spent entirely way too much time together. I believe the day we kissed, like the day before when we were walking to this party, this random girl asked me, hey, you seem to hang out with Jean a lot. Are you like an item? And I was just like, no, we're friends, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, yeah, I mean, you go everywhere together and stuff like that. And this is the day where our kiss happened, right the next morning, you know. And one time, those same messages about, you know, oh, are you catching feelings, blah, blah, blah. Fucking Jean's brother Sam just found them on Jean's phone. He was using his phone for something and just went through his fucking messages, and I'll explain later why he reacted the way he reacted. I was surprised too by his reaction, but one time he just approached us. Jean and I were talking somewhere in like a separate room, and he just went up to us and he was like reading the messages from Jean's phone, and he was like, you good, you know, what the fuck is going on between you? He was smiling, but he was just genuinely a little bit shocked about that, and I realized pretty quick that that would be the extent of it. And so after a certain point, I slowly started to lose interest in it. Not in our friendship. I was not bitter. I was not trying to move on from him entirely. I just realized that maybe, you know, those kisses were not necessary. And I don't even remember that phase much. It just kind of started happening less and less. And then he did something that was very hurtful to me. One time he was at my place, and then Tina came around with Anne, and they were going to the movies, and they wanted something from me. And Jean reacted in this like weird way, like all of a sudden he had this renewed interest in Anne, and he was like, oh, I want to go to the movies too. And he just bounced, and he went to the movies with them and left me. But he was free to do what he wanted, but he never really took my feelings into account. The most he did was never really talk to me about girls, but he never really cared. If I knew something, then it is what it is. I feel like he felt powerful. And I don't know, I feel like in that moment he did not plan on making me jealous. He just did not give a shit about me, and it really hurt my feelings. And I think that he just got tired of me, and I honestly just got tired of him too. I just slowly let it fizzle out, and then there was this other reason why Jean was pulling away from me, in a romantic way, not in a friendship way per se. It was his brother Sam, of all people. Someone that I have up to this point not even mentioned much, because he was not contributing to anything happening in my life at all. We're just cool. But something has changed. Maybe just boredom. Maybe how incestuous we were all. Like we all were in this group of friends that barely saw other people. If we saw other people, it was for like a couple of weeks, and then people would normally just disappear again, and it was just us all the time, the same people. So you tend to like start looking at each other the wrong way after a certain point, you know. Before this point, Sam has dated Tina briefly, and he has dated this other friend of us briefly, so he was collecting us the same way Jean was, but at least, you know, he dated those girls for real. And the other girl broke up with him, so it was like he was this womanizer. So now Sam has set his eyes on me. Before I jump into Sam's story though, I just have to note another major thing that happened, and I just could not believe that that was the timing when it happened. But when I thought about it, there relationship with Jean must have fizzled out completely by that time. I can't imagine anything else. I would not have been okay with dealing with him while that was happening. And I just don't remember it being dramatic. I would have remembered if that hurt me, because I remember such small things from that time, and yet I don't remember being heartbroken that we stopped kissing or whatever. We apparently stopped dealing with each other, and then tell me why Tina and Jean started fucking. It's just crazy to me. Like, their relationship was one of the most toxic relationships I've ever encountered. After all this animosity between them, all of a sudden he started making moves on her. Maybe he just was way too horny, not getting anywhere with me. He just wanted a real deal. Or what? After talking shit about Tina behind her back and to her face, after slut-shaming her and thinking that, she's this and that, he, of course, fucked her. And I don't know when that happened and how. It was just some drunk thing that happened between them. Obviously, again, orchestrated by him. And yeah, they just did it and started doing it. I remember one time Anne and I was at Tina's place, and I'm making it sound like it's just us three being besties, but we had a relatively big group of girlfriends. It's just that the other girls, they don't contribute to the story, so I'm leaving them out. We just happened, as fate would have it, to be the three of us, Jean's, best girls. And then Tina's phone started ringing, and whose name was on the screen? Anne and I just looked at each other like, ew, what? And Tina was all shy and hiding under the blanket, trying to hide her face, talking to him in this weird voice and almost whispering, and she was red in the face, but she was definitely playing up this whole shy thing, and just she was so attention hungry that even though the attention was mainly negative, she just wanted to be paid attention to. She wanted us girls to pay attention to her just as much as she wanted, Jean to deal with her. And we were just like, are you fucking him or something? And she was like, yeah, I don't know, it just happened. And this is the beginning of this amazing love story. No, of course not. So yeah, basically, instead of coming over to my place, Jean started coming over to her place, which was right next to mine. We lived in the same house. He now could save himself one floor worth of an elevator ride. I guess that was worth it. And of course, they must have had a lot of chemistry and compatibility, because Tina told Anne and I that she liked it. It was, great sex and stuff like that. This is also where she told me that he said to her that with me, he knew that nothing will happen, and so he didn't even let himself get aroused or anything, but with her it was much different. He complimented her body a lot. He made her feel good. He knew how to behave. It's not like he did not have any house training. He knew how to be a gentleman, and so especially for her, on the contrast of how he used to treat her, that must have hit her like a ton of bricks. Basically, those two idiots started messing around, and I don't even know how it ended and why, but yet again, it ended, and this is where we circle back to Sam's story, where this whole thing kind of comes to a very ironic, poetic close. Just to remind you yet again that she used to date Sam for a couple of weeks. He broke up with her because guys around him kept falsely slut-shaming her, and that was too much for his reputation to handle, I guess. Also, I've mentioned that this girl from our group was dating Sam briefly. Well, imagine that. Tina was the one who broke them apart and basically guilt-tripped this girl into breaking up with him. And the very first time I was also around with the whole group, we all went home and Tina is crying. This other girl is crying. They're all like talking about Sam, and I'm just like along for the ride because I'm new, you know. And I just hear them talking about how this girl finally gave in and broke up with Sam because Tina said so, and she's like quoting what she said to Sam as her reasoning, and she's like, I basically told him the girls and I had a discussion and we just had to laugh because who fucking says that? And it was just so hilarious, even though she basically just told him the truth. Tina basically strong-armed her into breaking up with him because, oh, you know, I like him too, we're just freshly broken up, which is fair enough, you know. This group was messy and I was eating that shit up in that bus. I was like, yes, that's exactly the type of like drama bullshit I want to be dealing with. Yes. It was so exciting, and to have like a bunch of girlfriends, even though I knew those girls, but now we were like just on this new level of friendship, I guess. And Tina and I started hanging out that day because we just lingered after everyone went home, being neighbors and all. And yeah, I have got so many messy stories from Tina from this whole story time because no time would be enough to get through them all. But that's just like a tidbit. So Sam also had some emotional meaning to her, and now she was dealing with Jean as well. So what happens next must have been very awkward for her to experience. Sam and I, we have gotten along very well, but that was nothing out of the ordinary. I basically got along with each cousin in my own way. But then just as Jean and I started to, I don't know, exchange saliva less, Sam started to want to meet up with me or come to my place, and he basically used the same excuse as Jean did. Oh, can I use your computer and stuff like that? But then he just started coming over to my place all the time, and we were just hanging out, and I honestly did not see that as anything other than just pure friendship. I did not even have any type of suspicion. Tina had nothing against that, but she was just wondering why he would just come over. But then one day we were at a party and he was just paying me mad attention the whole day, more than usual, and he was already paying me like much more attention in general, but nothing out of the ordinary. But that day he was just constantly playing the music that I wanted to hear. He was bringing me stuff, he gave me his jacket, just being all boyfriendy with me. And I noticed that Jean was kind of again running after Anne the whole time, and I wasn't even jealous at this point. Like the day that he left to go to the movies with her, I knew where all of this was going, so it was a matter of time, and I was glad that it was gonna be over, and you know, the chips will fall where they may. And that day Sam approached me and asked me to talk, and we were just laying on, you know, the bed and talking in his room, and he was just like, you know, we get along very well and I like you, what do you think about being my girlfriend? And I was really surprised by that for some reason, even though the writing was on the wall and I couldn't give him any type of answer. So I just asked him to give me some time to think, and he was like, sure. And the rest of the day he was just all over me, basically not talking to me or whatever. And Jean obviously knew all about it. They obviously discussed it, and they both knew what was gonna happen. And I feel like Jean orchestrated this whole thing so that he could go after Anne and it wouldn't be hurtful to me. He just basically found a safe shore for me, and in his eyes he took care of me. That way it protected my pride. It gave me something to, fixate over, I guess. It was kinda, in his own way, actually nice that he did that. If you were to fuck someone over after playing with their feelings and giving them false hope, you might as well do it like that. And that day, Sam walked me home, and the only thing he said to me, where I told him that I'm gonna think about it, he told me that he would like for his girlfriend to be a non-smoker. Also, like, with the sexism of the early 2000s, I wasn't really into smoking anyway. Anytime I wanted to smoke, my whole body would just reject it. So giving up smoking would not have been a problem for me anyway. I went home to think, and later I talked to Tina, and she told me that she watched out of her window how Sam walked me home, and how he just stood there smoking, looking at my window for a while before he left to go home. And also she told me that before that she was in the kitchen with Sam and Jean, and Jean looked at Sam and he told him something along the lines of, "If you hurt her, I'm gonna break your neck," or something like that. Oh, how chivalrous. So the next day we all went to Sam and Jean's place. Sam ran out up to meet me before everyone else did, and he was like, "Care for a smoke?" And I'm like, "Nah, I don't smoke." So this was kind of like, us getting together, and it was the cringiest experience of my life. The same day he tried to kiss me on the lips goodbye, and it felt like kissing my brother. I did not feel anything, and I basically just gave him a peck on the lips, and that was about it. The same day, Jean immediately started slipping me cigarettes. We're standing on a balcony, and he just couldn't resist, breaking this one rule his brother had for his girlfriend that I willingly agreed to. He just couldn't get over it. He just had to be a dick about it. And I just had a couple of pulls from his cigarette, and we just stood there on the balcony in silence. And it just did not work out. 3 days later, after nothing happened between us but him just hugging me, sitting next to me, he walked me home again and asked me, "This is not gonna work, is it?" And I was just like, "Nah, not really, I don't think so." And it was just like, "Okay, then let's just, annul the whole thing." And I was like, "Yeah." And actually it ended up not being awkward between us pretty much immediately. Of course, the couple of next days afterwards we tried to avoid each other a little bit, but he was, he wasn't an awkward guy, neither was I. If one of us told a joke, the other one would laugh, and just by being amongst other people, we just found a way to become friends pretty much immediately, and this whole thing was just swept under the rug, We just did not worry about that at all anymore. And Jean and Anne just basically started dating, and I don't remember being jealous. I don't remember feeling any type of way about it, because Jean made a point of still being friends with me. He still spent time with me. I don't remember him giving me less attention. We just did not make out anymore. but he still found time to hang out, and Anne seemed to be okay with it. Anne and I were still friends. We still went to school together. It was fine. The way Jean and Anne got together was basically he pulled her aside and asked her if she wanted to try again. And she said okay, because I guess they've been texting for a while. Something has been going on behind the scenes. It's not like he arranged this marriage with Sam for me just out of, the kindness of his heart. He was working to fit his own interests, and she was kind of sick that day, and he wanted to kiss her, and she warned him, oh, you don't want to catch whatever I have. My throat is hurting all the time. And he's like, I'm already in pain. And he kissed her. And when she told me the story, she was like giggling about how corny that sounded. And I remember just thinking, even though I was doing pretty good as far as Jean went, I still remember feeling like I never came close to him feeling the same way about me. He really had feelings for Anne that were genuine. He really did feel something for her that I guess he probably never felt before. He told me stories about this one ex-girlfriend of his that got pregnant after they broke up, and he never knew if the baby was his or it wasn't, and he kept beating up her new man, but the man was persistent and they stayed together, and he was very hurt by their breakup. But I guess Anne was like the love of his life, and it was just a bitter pill to swallow. But swallow it I did, because I had no other choice, and I just had to accept things finally for what they really were. That lasted for a while, and then came time for my birthday, so I would turn 15. And on my birthday, oh shit, unfortunately hit the fan. Because after my birthday, for which, everyone was there, Jean bought me flowers, stuff like that. After everyone went home, and we were partying at Jean and Sam's place again, after everything was done, Tina came over and told me that she and Jean had sex at that party. And I was just like, you have got to be shitting me. And she was just like, yeah, I feel very bad. And she was talking to me like she was feeling bad that she fucked my boyfriend, not Anne's. And she was like, I see by your reaction that you're, offended. And I was like, girl, you are friends with Anne. Why would you do that? And why would you do that with Jean, of all people? Like, doing shit like that is already icky as it is, but doing it for a guy that does not respect you, does barely like you, why would you do that? She was just, anytime she would do shit like that, she would just be like shrugging. She never knew why she did what she did. And Tina was the reason I developed this hatred for people who are not self-aware, because I feel like it just gives them free pass to do whatever the hell they want, and then it's all just excused by the fact that they're stupid and they didn't know any better. And I just still to this day have this weak spot of just hating shit like that. It just riles me up very quickly, and I was just like, Tina, I cannot believe you, but it was not a surprise. Honestly, Tina, she kissed my guy before, so why not escalate to fucking someone else's boyfriend? She got along with Anne, and she was my best friend at the time, and she knew that me and him also had history, but she did not care about any of that. She was drunk. He approached her and she just said yes, and that was obviously just completely initiated by him. Anne and him were not intimate at the time. He was still trying to wait, but I guess not with Tina, who is basically roughly Anne's age, but Tina was used goods for him, so it might as well. But we all agreed that Gene was interested in us because he was a loser. He did not seem to be attracted to a teenage body per se. You know, Anne had like a big ass and nice boobs too, so like they did not have a body of a young teenager. I did, and I was the only one he wasn't really sexually attracted to, you know. It wasn't about that to him, it was about the mental state. It was about the fact that he felt like a man next to us. It didn't matter that he was, you know, a jobless loser, that he did not have shit going for him. He did not achieve anything in his life. He was a freeloader. All that did not matter when you're dealing with kids. And I feel like as he grew older himself, he started to feel less and less attention from other girls his age. And small wonder. I mean, of course he did. And so he was more and more desperate. And he just couldn't accept that. He would rather deal with like children and feel hot and powerful and smart. He would rather lower the bar than actually improve himself. He's just a genuine loser. And we all knew it even back then, you know, we were catching on. So the very next morning, the first thing I fucking did was I got up early in the morning, I skipped school, and I went over to his place like at 8 o'clock in the morning. I woke him up, and I was just like, I cannot believe you. And he was like, why? What did I do? And I'm like, I did not expect that of you. You really fucked Anne over. Anne is my friend. You really did her dirty. Why did you have to do that? You did not have to date her if you never planned on staying loyal. If she wasn't enough for you, why not just stay single? And I just basically let him have it. And he was just sitting there, taking it in complete silence. And I didn't yell at him or anything. I just told him that I was very disappointed. And that he was working so hard on getting with Anne. And he just threw the relationship out the window. He just basically knew that the gig was up. He knew that either Tina or I will just let Anne know. But next thing we knew, he did not come over for the next party or the next or the next. And he stopped calling Anne and he stopped texting us, and he just disappeared on us and ghosted us both. It was just so surprising to either of us. Obviously Tina told Anne, so Anne was not only cheated on, but she was also immediately ghosted without an apology. He was just so fucking cowardly, such an asshole. I don't know, it was just so wrong the way he just cowardly ran away instead of apologizing, breaking up with her officially. Better yet, breaking up before cheating, you know? So, yeah, he just stopped talking to us, which was like crazy to me. But, you know, to each their own. And again, there came an elevator scene where Anne was at my place, and then we had to meet Tina to just go hang out again. And we all stood in the same elevator in silence, awkward as shit. And I just turned to Anne and I told her, welcome to the club, Tina is a cunt. And yeah, Tina just had to stand there and take it, you know, because she was a cunt. And yeah, we just left it off kind of and forgave Tina, like as I did, because Tina is a force of nature. You can either forgive her or you can fight her or kill her. I don't know what you can do other than just, it's not like we could just ghost her. We were all in the same group. There was just it was just easier to get along, and we wanted just to have fun, you know. At the end of the day, after a school week, we wanted to just drink, laugh with our friends, have fun. It was not that deep, and was not like that in love with Gene or anything still. So yeah, and Anne and I, we just got closer, and yeah, we just joked about being ghosted. And I must say that I can do about it, so I just tried to move on with my life. I even cried in school once with Anne sitting right next to me. I was so dramatic, but I was sincerely sad about it for a while. I knew that that's a good thing. I knew that trash took itself out. Gene was not ever around. He was texting us, he wasn't calling us, we didn't either. None of us. I reached out to him to ask what was going on. Maybe he was waiting for us to do so. I feel like maybe that was a power play. He would have probably seen it as consent to father cheat on Anne, to father lead me along, and we were just not down for it. We didn't even think that he was waiting for us to text him, honestly, but now I know that he probably was. But he was always the one reaching out. I never called Gene in my life, not once. I never texted him first. He always reached out to me, and with Anne it was the same thing. So when he disappeared, he disappeared. And I just feel like we are so icy for that, like cold AF. But we went on a school trip, and I ended up like cutting my wrists, is not even the word for it, like scratching my wrists with a razor, very, very superficially, listening to, oh my god, it's so embarrassing, but I have to say it, Tokyo Hotel, yes, oh yes. But hey, I mean, as a teen, it's our birthright to be cringe, okay? So I had to go through my millennial blunder years. So yeah, and it's kind of funny to me, but at the same time it's kind of sad, because everyone who does that while listening to Tokyo Hotel is obviously way too young to be dealing with adult men, and it's the adult men who should know that, and who should know enough to not mess with someone so vulnerable and so young and so naive. I honestly did that because I missed our friendship like 70%, and only 30% was just unrealized dreams, I guess. It was something undiscovered, something unconquered. It was not cool dealing with him and enduring so much disappointment just for him to disappear and me not even related to that. I was just shaken to my core for a bit there, and I had to get this out of my system. And I actually had scars all over my arm, and that surprised me. I did not expect it to last that long. So I guess the cuts were deep enough to do that, but not deep enough to cause actual harm. But now that I have a daughter, I just look very much differently at the whole thing, and I have so much more pity and compassion with myself, and I just feel bad for myself, for the least deserving person too, as it always happens. Oh, it's just so embarrassing. But those scars actually lasted for 12 years, bro. I did not expect that. They were just brown stripes on my arm. So I guess over a decade later, they just faded finally, and I did not even realize. And just one day they were gone. Symbolic, I guess. And my teacher was not trying to make me feel like that shit was cute, or that that's a shortcut to get attention or anything. The second he saw that shit, or I guess someone told on me, someone of my classmates or whatever, he went over to me, grabbed my fucking wrist, removed my fucking sleeve, and he was like, what is this? What is this? And he was the nicest guy ever, and he was so understanding, but this shit pissed him the fuck off. And then he just left. And I know that he's one of the best people I've ever met in my entire life. The best teacher, hands down. And I know that what he did was calculated for my benefit, and it was just a strategy to not make me feel like that's how you get attention, that's how you get people's positive reactions, and that I should continue doing that shit. And it really grounded me, and I'm very thankful for that. Not that I had any intentions on doing that again, was a huge cutter, actually. She has, to this day, terrible scars on her arms. She continuously did that every like half a year or so, and she continued to do that later in life. She once cut her wrists at my best friend's place, and my best friend found her on the floor of her bathroom. Everything was covered in blood, and my best friend almost beat her ass. Like, she helped her and she nursed her, but she almost killed her for that shit, because she knew that attention is a big factor why she does that, and my friend was not trying to give her this attention so that she can do this again and again and again. She also showed me her scars once. I believe it was like the first time she ever did it. I felt very bad because it was after I was showing her my emo shit, and the whole cutter aesthetic was in fashion back then. And then the very next day she shows me those scars, and my first reaction was to slap her in the face, just because I also knew that she was doing this for like positive reinforcement and for pity, and I just knew that I need to cut that shit, nip it in the butt. I need to show her that that's not what's gonna get you attention, that what's gonna get you fucking slapped. But I still felt like incredibly bad, and I was just like, I'm never showing you this shit again, bro. It's one thing that she wanted to like cosplay being emo or goth or punk or whatever identity I had at the time, and we were listening to like rock music, and she took her ghetto blaster and she put it on her shoulder, and we were walking around town having the time of our lives. But I'm no longer showing her any type of images like that. And she also cut her wrists privately a lot as well. So it was a mix of attention seeking and just personal pain that she undoubtedly had. But yeah, this is just my tangent. Since we're on the topic of cut wrists, I just had to mention that because it gives an insight into Tina's mind. But yeah, that was the last time I really grieved Jean's absence in my life, and I decided that it's time to just move on. And also moved on immediately. She did not seem like she was grieving over the cheating or this loss. We just both knew that he wasn't really that painful of a loss. We knew that we were just dealing with him because he was imposing himself on us all the time. But once he removed himself, we did not feel like chasing him at all. We were still friends. We constantly gossiped about him. There was no competition between us, but I did have moments where I was kind of jealous when she talked about how he texted her, or he did that, or he did this. Especially before they started dating, I was kind of a little bit upset, and it kind of ended up hurting our friendship a bit. And years later, our friendship will just fizzle out. But we would stay friends for years after that. And even now, we constantly see each other, and we do talk and text each other occasionally, but we're not close anymore. We still do be joking about Jean from time to time. That's inevitable. But yeah, I was ready to move on with my life, and I was ready to find something better to distract myself with. I was young, and I was still partying, having fun, hanging out with my friends. I wasn't sitting at home crying, That would come later, unfortunately. But as of now, I was doing actually better every day, and I was looking forward, and I was moving on. I never saw Jean, and so it made it infinitely easier. I think Jean also knew that, so we just both kind of were moving on. I don't know what he was doing. Whatever he was doing, he did not progress in whatever he was doing because he remained virtually unchanged. But anyway, one day Sam invited me to Casa maybe dating this girl that he just met, and he wanted me to transition her softly into the group. He wanted her to meet me first because he did not want Tina to get her hooks into her, and he wanted her to have like a liaison or whatever in the group. So I agreed, and why not go to an extra party? Gene was not there. I feel like he chose not to come when he knew that I will be coming. And I was glad that he wasn't here. I was not in a mood for him to like avoid me or whatever. I was just ready to just have fun. The girl will be important later, so we'll just give her a name now, Melanie. But as of that particular moment, she is not really important. So I befriended her and whatever. But also invited to this party was Dan, the guy that I've mentioned before, the funny dude that invited us to stay over at this place a couple of times. Dan was kind of Sam's bestie at the time, and he was even older than Gene was. He was 11 fucking years older than I was. We were having fun. All these weird ass adults were giving us vodka and beer and whatever. We were cussing up a storm. I don't know. I feel like some adults really should stay classy. I know that you want to, gain some brownie points with the new generation, but I mean, then, as always, he had us dying all the time. I don't know, he was just so charming, and it worked on everybody. The guys were in stitches. He's just this charming, and I don't know, I guess I was feeling myself that day, and I was just feeling very comfortable. The vibe was immaculate, and I was just relaxed and having so much fun. And so I just made jokes myself, talked a lot, and Dan really, really liked that. We just started like finishing each other's sentences. We were completely on the same wavelength, and he just noticed me, and he just started vibing with me very much, and he started showering me compliments. He was like, "Oh my god, you're so funny, you're so clever, where did you find her? She's so cute," and stuff like that. And it just ended up with me sitting on his lap, and he was hugging me. He gave me his jacket because it was kind of getting cold, and he was just in love with me, but not in a weird way. I mean, sitting on someone's lap is kind of not that platonic, but everything else was very peachy. He was just basically telling me that he really likes my personality and I'm a riot, and I don't know, we were having a lot of fun. And Dan is fucking handsome AF. Like, this guy, he's so good looking. He was tall, dark hair, a stubble, just yummy. I was dying. Like, I did not even notice him before like that, because for me he seemed like way out of not my league, but just age-wise, he seemed like someone's dad, whatever, almost. But I should have known better. Like, my experiences already showed me that those guys have no shame and no limitations as far as age goes. I was immediately just completely hooked on Dan because he made me feel so good. He showered me in so many compliments. He treated me like a princess. He catered to my every whim. He was all over me, and he's the type of person that when you have his fullest attention, it feels like heroin or whatever, dopamine rush. I'm just saying, like, one of those people, if you know, you know. He held my hand when we all went home and whatever, and I was just completely over Gene. Like, that was enough for me to just forget all about his existence. Gene did not even come close all the this history that we shared was immediately overshadowed because, of course, Dan was, you could say, love bombing me, you know. I never lived to see the other side of Dan. This story between us never lasted so long that I would find out, you know, the consequences and the downside of dealing with him. And I feel like it's very fortunate because all I have are nice memories of him. We just started hanging out. Sam started inviting me to hang out quite a lot, and Dan would be there more often than not. Sam and I became basically very good friends, and I feel like Dan kind of requested my presence. I feel like he spoke to Sam and he wanted me to be there, so we would hang out, just the three of us, and those days were so magical. I was just so happy. We were just roaming around town, doing whatever. We started at the beginning of the day, running some errands and stuff like that, and then we just met up with Dan, laughing our asses off, vibing. It was perfect, like telling each other stories. It felt like we knew each other for forever. Dan was actually telling us very personal stories. One of those stories was, unfortunately, that he regrets hating his girlfriend. I'm like, whoa. But again, if I heard that shit now, that would be an immediate fuck no for me. Just, you know, hanging out with a person like that would be such a turn off on every level. But I was so young that this concept seemed so foreign to me, and, you know, it did not agree with what I saw Dan be like. So my mind just could not compute, and he was here like very regretful, like drunk, confessing to it and being ashamed of it and stuff like that. So I was just like, damn, you know, I don't know what to feel about that, but it stuck to my memory. It was one of those moments where I knew that Dan was not, you know, the perfect knight in shining armor. I needed to, you know, watch myself with him. That was actually the vibe I got from him immediately when I first met him. I was like, he's pleasant enough, but he's kind of secretive. There's something about him. But yeah, I don't know, I was just so happy in his presence. One time I even met his dad because I missed my last bus and I had to stay over with Sam at Dan's place. And Dan, since he just moved to the country, he was still at this point staying with his dad. And I immediately knew the second I met his dad where Dan got that shit from. His dad was a gentleman. They slept on the floor and I slept on the king-size bed. But yeah, of course, perfect things like that cannot last forever. Unfortunately, Jean had to make an appearance just as I was like completely moving on and doing well and perfectly fine without him in my life. One day we were at Sam's place and Jean was finally there for the first time, and I don't know, we did not speak to each other at first per se, but then when, you know, everyone was talking to each other, he would, you know, say something to comment on what I was saying, and I kind of started feeling comfortable doing the same. So we just started in public easing up on each other again. And the same day, a couple of us were in Jean's room and were sitting on his bed and talking. And then everyone kind of left the room and we just lingered. We were laying on the bed in silence. And I don't know, I was drunk. I felt good about, you know, the vibe that we had, that we started speaking again. Because even though, yes, I have kind of romantically moved on, I was still, I don't know, I missed my friend, I missed Jean. I don't know how to explain it, like every bad thing that I told about him, there were still like a lot of pleasant things about him. He was never in a bad mood. He was very pleasant in the way he treated people. He was polite. I feel like really hurt him in the long run, because if he did not have that, he would have been treated by people so much better than he was. I feel like if he really liked people and opened up to people, he could have been a very nice person that attracted a lot of positive feelings, but his dark side just ruined it. I missed us hanging out. I missed the interesting conversations that we had. I missed his dark sense of humor. I missed his laughter. Like when he got to laughing hysterically, it was the funniest shit ever. Tina and my best friend and this cousin that I barely mentioned, they were the same way. The most contagious fucking laughter ever. I wish I could laugh like that. It kills you when you hear that shit. One time, it was so funny, since Sam and Gina are brothers, they kind of look the same, and Sam was at my place once, we were just hanging out, and all of a sudden, my mom comes home, and she sees Sam, and her eyes got so big, she was like, "What are you doing here? How did you get here?" And she told us that she met Gene on her way home, and he helped her carry her bags. And I feel like that was when we were not even talking. He still did that for her. Even knowing damn well she did not like him and not talking to me, he still, helped her. Because, that was a decent thing to do. And she thought that she saw him again when she came came into my room and saw Sam. That was so funny. So yeah, there were nice things from our friendship that I've missed. I enjoyed the attention that he gave me and the preferential treatment that he always showed me, as far as just personal relationship goes. It was the romantic side of things that was atrocious, but the friendly side of things was actually okay. And so we were just sitting here looking at each other, and I just looked at him and I smiled because, I don't know, I was drunk and I felt comfortable and I wanted to smile at him. I wanted this bridge between us. And he smiled at me back, and he's like, "Why are you smiling for?" And I'm just like, just because I want to. And we just started talking, and we never addressed whatever happened between us, and we just resumed our friendship randomly from this point on. And ever since that day, Jean and I became friends again. And Jean did not have any type of dog, as far as I know. So they just became cordial again. We were all just trapped in this friend group, and everyone really enjoyed our presence there. We did not want one person to ruin everything, and so each of us just ignored whoever we had trouble with at the moment, and we just all tried to be cordial with each other. Because, when you're a close-knit group that meets twice a week, going on like 2 years now, it's impossible to untangle that shit. It's easier to just move along. Sam and Jean shared one ICQ account. Oh my god, we're so old. And this account would just text me, "You wanna go get something, or you want to accompany me somewhere?" I would just say sure, and I would just go out, not even knowing who it was inviting me, Sam or Jean, because it was all the same for me. I was very cool with Sam, I was very cool with Jean, and actually hanging out with Sam sometimes meant hanging out with Dan, and so I was all for that shit. He was such a charmer that even one of our friends that never let any guy close to her, and I was not involved in all of that bullshit. One time Sam wanted us to rush somewhere, and this girl was like walking too slow, so Sam just grabbed my hand and just made me walk very quickly with him, and he was like, "Just fuck those guys, I have to get there." And Dan took this other girl's hand so she wouldn't be left out, and also like to play this game with us, I guess. And they walked together for like 5 minutes, and she told me that it was like so pleasant, that he's such a cutie and stuff like that. So even she was very charmed by just his gentleman ways and how just nice he was. he generally was nice to everyone, even to Tina. I'm saying even because he kind of talked shit about Tina behind her back a bit. I did not appreciate that, and I did say something about that. He tended to kind of make comments about how he wished Tina would not rub off on me and slut shaming her. Basically, he was phrasing it like a compliment to my virtue and stuff like that, but he was just shitting on my friend. So I was like, nah, don't do that shit. Dan got all that from the guys. That's obvious and that's not cute, but in this group, we girls gossiped about those guys all the time. The guys knew that. So it just, I can't imagine the boys also gossiping back. You know, we were just all very much dramatic and toxic. But there was love there. We did like hanging out with each other. Both things can be true at once. And as far as Jean goes, everything was roughly the same, but only for a couple of weeks, because this is where the story turns.